Hello everybody, welcome back to the News and Duval YouTube channel. Today it's going to be just Mafia alone, making a YouTube video on who I would like us to look at in the first two rounds of this upcoming draft. Now I know it's early, but I feel like with how the season's gone, this is just something that I should start getting into and just start really progressing with. So I'm only gonna do the first two rounds since there's been no combine, there's nothing serious about draft yet, and I honestly have not done enough scouting or research to say anybody who would be a steal in the third or later rounds. So we're just gonna stick to the top four picks. So jumping right into it, I mean everybody's gonna know who I'm gonna say for the number two pick. It's going to be Justin Fields. He's transferred from Georgia in 2018 to 2019. Went to Ohio State. Played 14 games last year. 67% point two completion percentage for 3,200 yards. I mean, 41 TDs, 3 INTs, 181 rating. That's borderline elite stats for a college quarterback. Can't go wrong with it. And then this year, he actually was looking better. He had that one shaky game, but everybody has bad games. Can't really hold that against him. He's got an impressive 78% completion percentage, which is extremely impressive to me. I mean, almost 80%, no matter how many attempts, is good to me. 1,400 yards, got 15 TDs, got those 3 INTs as well already this year, but, I mean, I think did all three of them come in the same game? I know at least 2 came in the same game, and I'm not going to scout him for one game. Everybody has bad games. He's got a 196 rating, so he's obviously improving from a passing standpoint. Everybody knows he's got the legs. I mean, he's got almost 1,000 career rushing yards in college, which is not a lot, but considering the lack of attempts he really has, I mean, he's also got 19 rushing touchdowns, so he uses his legs when in the red zone, which is honestly what we want to see. That's the most important part to this. He uses his legs in the red zone. So, and that's something, I mean, we've even seen Minshew do that. And just imagine having Justin Fields, who is probably going to run a 4.4, if not 4.3, assuming he runs at the combine. Probably won't, because quarterbacks never do, but he's been rumored to run a 4.3, which is extremely impressive. I mean, at this point, I'm going to put a 90% chance of a lock at number two. Unless Minshew does something crazy these final 3 games, he's just not going to stop us from getting Fields. I mean, we've almost locked the number 2 pick already, even with 3 weeks left. The only other real option at number 2 for me is Penn. Now, normally you'd be like, no, you get your franchise quarterback, call it a day. But Penn, this moment he steps onto the field, he's going to be a top 10 left tackle, which is so unbelievably rare because tackle, even guard, is a position where people really take time to learn. You'll almost never see a tackle or guard come in day one and be Pro Bowl level, All Pro level. You just don't see that. And to see Sewell, who is realistically going to do that, is just extremely, extremely impressive to me. And I mean, if they really do want to keep Minshew, which I don't think they do, with Caldwell being gone, I really don't see it happening. But you could take Sewell at number 2 and then try to really give it one more year with Minshew. I mean, you could do that, but I give it maybe a 5% chance. I really don't see that happening, unfortunately for us. Well, unfortunately for Minshew, I should say. And then hopefully no matter what we do, Fields doesn't bust if we do choose him, or if we do Sewell, I'd be actually pretty happy with Sewell. I mean, he'd give us close to a top 10 offensive line, realistically. That dude would solidify our offensive line and make it from almost a weakness to a clear strength on this team. I mean, you got Juwan Taylor at right tackle, he hasn't been flashy, but I mean, you don't hear his name a lot, which is what you want out of your offensive line. We've got the Ben Barch, who we drafted, and I believe he had his first career start this week. And I mean, against the Titans, granted they don't have a great pass rush, but since we as a team gave up no sacks, clearly Barch did hold his own at least a little bit. Now, I don't remember every snap off the top of my head, but I don't remember specifically seeing him blow anything. So and then we have Brandon Linder, of course, that's our center. He's going to be here for a while, assuming we don't cut him for cap space, which I don't think we would, because we have over 100 million cap in this next coming off season, so no point in that. But so my pick for that one would be probably Justin Fields. Would be the most assumed pick, and then we'll move on to pick number 26. This pick can change anywhere from the mid 20s to realistically 32, assuming the Rams don't win the Super Bowl. I don't think they will, but you never know. Anything can happen in football. You have my first guy is going to be Nick Bolton. He's an outside linebacker for Missouri. He's 6 foot, 230. He's just not out of this world from a pass rush standpoint. He's a base 4-3 linebacker. He's not going to, like, this is a pick, if we do stay a 4-3, I could see happening. You don't really get too many 4-3 linebackers coming in this draft anymore. Defense has become all about versatility, and Bolton is not really versatile in that way. He's good against the run. He's great against the pass. In 2019, he had 2 picks, including 1 pick six and 7 passes defense out of the linebacker position, which is extremely impressive. To go along with 100 total tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, and he had 1 sack. So he does get to the quarterback a little bit, but not enough to write home about. And this year, he's been off to a just as good start, honestly, aside from the INTs. But he's got 88 total tackles in 9 games, 7.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 passes defense, even a fumble recovery. I mean, he's doing his due diligence as a linebacker. He's not doing anything flashy, but he's putting up stats and he's leading that defense, in my opinion. That's realistically what he does. I mean, even though he's not maybe vocally leading them, you could tell by his play style. They know what he's gonna bring, and they can work around him because of that. My number 2 guy for the number 26 pick would probably be Rondale Moore. Moore was, for his freshman year in 2018, he was looking like he could have been who Jamar Chase is right now. He had 114 receptions for 1,200 yards plus with 12 TDs. He also ran the ball 21 times for 200 yards and 2 TDs. So overall, he had 1,471 scrimmage yards in 2018 to go along with 14 touchdowns. That's insane for a freshman wide receiver. Then in 2019, he got a little hurt, got a little banged up, didn't play too much. He ended up only getting 400 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns in 4 games, which again, it's 100 yards a game. It's not necessarily bad. It's just due to injury, he didn't really have another flashy season. This year, in 3 games, he's got 300 scrimmage yards for 1 touchdown. I mean, nothing flashy again, but you look back to that freshman year when he was fully healthy, it makes you wonder if he is fully healthy these past 2 years. Because he looks like a different player. And if a team does take him, I mean, he's undersized, but he's almost, I like to call him a wide receiver version of Darren Sproles. I don't know if anybody is truly familiar with Sproles, but I mean, what he did for a very long time was extremely impressive in my eyes. He was kind of like a utility player almost. He caught a lot of passes. He was very key in third downs and all that, and they just, like, you knew you could rely on him. And that's what I see Moore being, but more towards a wide receiver. He also reminds me almost a little bit, I don't want to say Steve Smith exactly, because that's not a great comparison. Maybe physically, not from a play style standpoint. Moore is more of a gadgety player, and Smith was a legit wide receiver 1. So maybe not from a play style, but from a physicality standpoint, I could see them having similar body types. But I like Moore, but I just don't think he's a good fit. At 26, I just don't feel like the value is there. 26 is going to be an odd pick for us, unfortunately. The third guy is Jalen Mayfield, the tackle from Michigan. Now, I mean, it's hard to really grade offensive linemen, but Mayfield's going to, I think, in my eyes, going to be a late first-round pick because he's still extremely young. He does not turn 21 until next May, which is extremely impressive at his size. He's 6'5", 320. He's a grown man, but he's still only 20. So, I mean, he'd be a great guy to even, I mean, maybe not start day 1, but I could see him being a very good pick long-term due to his age, and his ceiling is realistically a franchise left tackle, in my opinion. Like, do I think he's a perfect prospect like Sewell? No, obviously not, but that's why he's not going top 5. I think he would be a good stash type player there. I want to say I like him, but I just think we need more of a defensive draft, honestly. Because, you almost know we're going Fields at number 2, which is. It's hard to justify going offense, offense, offense a lot in this draft. Because, honestly, this year our defense has been not great. And our offense has been okay at times, but with people like James Robertson emerging, and we got Chark, you got Chenault who looks good, you got Colin Johnson who looks good. We're gonna have Cole hopefully re-signed. Our offense will be okay. But those are my 3 guys at pick number 26, and on to pick number 34, which again this pick's probably locked in more or less. This is our pick. The number 1 guy we're being talked about in this pick is Pat Fearmuth. Penn State tight end. They call him Baby Gronk. I don't know if I agree with that. Honestly, maybe in his earlier years at Penn State, because he was a touchdown machine, but this year he only has 1 touchdown and 23 receptions, which is not that impressive to me. But he did get injured and end his season, unfortunately. So there's not much more to see from him this year. This could cause him, honestly, before the injury, he was going projected as a first-round pick. So this injury could allow him to fall into our laps in the early second, which could be beneficial a lot for us. But on the other hand, I don't know if it's really a need. There's going to be quite a few tight ends in free agency. We could also give Ite for another year because he's shown flashes of being at least serviceable at tight end. I just don't know if we have to go tight end here, especially in a class like this at tight end. Other than Kyle Pitts, you really don't know if any of these tight ends are going to work out. Pat's the number 2 guy almost clearly, but even then, it's such a large jump between the two that it's scary to me, honestly. I don't know if I would touch him at this pick. I really don't. He's been good, but he hasn't been flashy to the point where you'd like. Tight ends are evolving into these seam runners who they run 4.5s and they're just like mismatch machines. And Pat is just not that. He's probably going to run a 4.9 at the combine, 4.8. I don't see him running anything lower than a 4.7 at his best. I really don't. Yes, he's a great blocking back, blocking tight end. But I don't know. He could fit our system better than Pitts, though, because we've never been a team to really utilize tight ends as much. You look at probably our best tight end in Mercedes Lewis. His majority of his career, we used him as a blocking tight end. And, he made a living off of it, obviously. Everybody knows who he is, but I don't know if I really think we need a tight end this early. Our offense has never been about tight ends, and I don't see the need. I really don't. Would I be mad with this pick? No, because honestly, Pat could be very, very good for us as a 3-down tight end and basically solidify that position on offense so we don't ever have to worry about it for the next few years. But I don't know if it's worth it. I feel like there's other ways we can go with this pick. And jumping into that, I think Jalen Twyman at pick number 34, yes, it's a reach. But, this dude, if he didn't sit out this year, he was going to be a top 20 pick. I will say that right now with confidence. His body type and his play style reminds me of a lot of Ed Oliver. And I don't know, some earlier followers will remember I was very, very high on Ed Oliver. He was my number 1 guy before Josh Allen fell to us. Which, again, I'm extremely happy about that. But if Josh Allen didn't fall to us, I wanted Ed Oliver with every bone in my body. I really did. Ed Oliver, he's been good for Buffalo. He hasn't been out of this world, but he does the dirty work on the inside. That's what you want. He's a pass rushing DT. He brings that interior pressure, which is what we're lacking right now. And Twyman's very similar. They're almost identical in body types, both sitting around 6'2", 290. And Twyman even though he sat out this year, he had an insane 2019 season. Now, it doesn't look crazy, but if you remember from an interior standpoint, in 13 games, he had 41 total tackles, which is good for 13 games for an interior lineman. He had 12 tackles for loss, which is good. 10.5 sacks, which is extremely impressive. And then he also had 2 passes defensed. So even though he's not 6'6", 6'5", he's not going to be a crazy presence. He showed that he can really disrupt people in the passing game and the run game as well from the interior, even though due to his size. But I honestly think he'd be a great fit for us Because him next to Hamilton, who's what, 6'3", 6'4", 330 or whatever it is, I mean, he'd be an amazing fit for me in my eyes. I really think he's going to shoot up draft boards because I think he's going to have an amazing combine. And he's projected right now as a late second, early third, but I can't see him going that low in a draft like this. There's no true interior D linemen that are elite in this draft, and due to that, I feel like Twyman could be the first or second one off the board simply off of potential. I really do. And then my third guy would be Jevon Holland. Everybody, I mean, at this point, everybody knows who he is. He's been mocked to us by quite a few different larger sites. He's the safety out of Oregon. I mean, he did sit out this year, but I mean, that was to be expected. A lot of players did. Holland is a ball hawk, to put it in easier terms. I mean, the dude doesn't outmatch from a blitzing standpoint, anything like that, but in 13 games in his rookie year, he had 5 picks, 6 passes defensed. And then 14 games in his sophomore year, he had 4 picks and 4 passes defensed. I mean, the dude gets the ball. 9 picks in 2 seasons is extremely impressive, honestly. That shows you he has the hands to go make plays, and he's just what you're looking for at a safety right now. He's 6'1", 200. He can play both safety positions for us. He could make a lot of sense at a pick like this. Is he ideal to me? I don't know, because I don't think he's much trevor than every other safety in this draft, or at least the top safeties. I mean, there's multiple, like Paris Ford, Andre Sisco, Trevin Morig. These guys, I don't think there's a big enough gap to justify taking Jevon at number 34 instead of taking one of those guys at number 48. I really don't think there's a big enough gap there. And, I mean, it's a good pick to me, but I'm only listing it simply off the fact that I think it's possible, but for me personally, I don't like the pick. I think we can just wait and get a safety at a better position at the draft and get somebody more like Twyman or Pat. I think Twyman or Pat at 34 are the two smartest picks for us, in my opinion. Depending on where we want to go and depending on how our first round goes, I think those are the two guys there that make the most sense to me for what we need. And I just don't see Holland. I mean, Holland has a good fit, but I just don't like him there at pick number 34. I really don't. So jumping into pick number 48, it's going to be a guy that I'm extremely high on. His name is Paris Ford. He's not anything, I don't want to call him anything special, but I mean, the dude he makes plays. He's 6', 190 listed, but I think he's a little bit bigger than it, honestly. I think he's more like 6'1", 200. I really do. Though he plays like it at least. But he had his real breakout year in his sophomore year. He had 90 total tackles, 2.5 for loss, 3 picks, including pick 6, 9 passes defense, 3 forced fumbles. He really and all that in just 12 games, which is extremely impressive. It showed you that he was the difference maker on that Pittsburgh defense. And he's one of the few who actually did decide to play this year from early prospect-wise. And he had a good year. He didn't have a good year as his sophomore year, but he had 41 total tackles, 3 for loss, 3 picks, 1 pass defense. And I mean, I believe he still has a couple games left in him, so he could realistically pad these stats a little bit more. But again, it's not a major concern to me. It just really sticks out to me, honestly, that that sophomore season, it showed. I mean, he made all the right plays, and he was everywhere on the field from that safety position. And he played both, which is what impressed me the most. Like, people are going to think, oh, he's mainly just a free safety, he's a roamer. No, he came up and hit some people. It was extremely impressive for me due to his size, because you don't really, you hear his size and you don't think he's going to come up and hit people hard, but once you watch the tape on him, you just realize that he's one of those guys that plays like he's 6'2", 220, but then he can also cover as if he's a free safety, which is realistically what he is. And the next guy for me is Trevin Morig. This guy, I don't know. I like him as a prospect. I just don't think he's anything special. I really don't. He went to Texas Christian. He's 6'2", 200. He's your basic safety. He's a combo safety as well, which seems like to be what the league's going. There's no real free safety, strong safety anymore. Every safety can play both spots at this point. I mean, he played a lot. He has a lot of experience. He played 11 games as freshman, 12 games sophomore, 10 games junior. So he's got a lot of games under his belt. His best year was by far sophomore. He had 62 total tackles, 1.5 for loss, 4 picks, 11 passes defense, which does jump off the page for me a little bit, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 forced fumbles. This year, he also had 47 total tackles in 10 games, 2 picks, and then he had 9 passes defense again. So Morig hits me more as a free safety type roamer. Even though he has larger size than some of the other safeties, he's not as physical in my eyes. I see him more as a potential free safety than anything else. I really don't see him fitting as a strong safety. He just doesn't have that physicality to me. He really doesn't. Again, I like him, but I think Paris Ford, for what we need, would be a much better pick. We need somebody to give us energy on that back end of our secondary. We need that guy who will come up and make a big hit, who will come up and make that big play. We don't really need somebody who's going to just roam back there, and we need somebody who's going to juice up this defense, really. The secondary needs it. I love our secondary's potential, but they just need that guy who's going to be almost like a glue guy. Somebody like what Tashawn Gibson was in 2017 on that defense. He's not going to be the star of the team, but he'll be that glue piece that holds it all together. And then the final guy for pick number 48. Now, this is going to be an interesting one for a lot of people. This guy, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about him. I almost want to say that his stats are just insane to me. I almost don't want to believe it, but it's just insane. To see what this guy's become, it's just the only thing that scares me is he's purely a potential type pick. I mean, his name is Chaz Surratt from North Carolina. Many of you probably don't know who he is even, but he started his career as a quarterback for the first 2 seasons, and he was not a very good quarterback. But then his junior season came around, and he decided to just work his ass off in the gym, and he bulked up to 6'2", 225, and he came out and in 13 games had 115 total tackles, 15 tackles for loss, and 6.5 sacks to go along with 1 pick and 2 passes defense, 1 fumble recovery, and even 1 forced fumble. I mean, he stuffed the stat sheet in 13 games. For him to come out and do that was honestly, I think it's mind-blowing to me, considering he was never really a linebacker. I mean, I don't know if he played linebacker in high school or what it was. I really don't, but he just looked comfortable out there. But at the NFL level, there's a lot more to linebacker. You can't just use physicality and use your physical ability as an excuse to get stuff. He just scares me from that standpoint. But he did have a good senior year as well. I mean, he had 91 total tackles in 11 games, 7.5 for loss, 6 sacks, another pick, 3 more passes defense, another fumble recovery, and another forced fumble. So he showed that junior year wasn't really a fluke year. I mean, he was a little bit more active in his junior year, but I think that's part of the reason that people didn't know who the hell he was. They were not game planning around him at all, and it allowed him to do what he did and game wreck at times. And, I mean, although he did come back in his senior year and put up really good stats overall, I mean, this guy, he's not a need, but if he could grow into what his potential really is, which, I mean, this guy has insane level potential. I mean, he can play any linebacker position with his size and his ability. You could even put him on the edge a little bit. I mean, he had 6 sacks both seasons, and he wasn't even really a pure pass rusher at all, and he had decent sack numbers. It's just, he's one of those guys who you don't really need them, but it's almost stupid to not take a flyer on them at least. Especially at like pick number 48, which, I mean, does he work out? Does he not work out? You don't know. But just imagine the fact that if he does work out. Like, imagine that this guy falls into our laps at pick number 48. We take him, even maybe just his first year, give him a little bit of snaps. Don't really start him fully. Let him get his feet wet in the NFL. And the second year, just put him out there and see what he does. I mean, just imagine that linebacking core if he does land up being as good as he seems and as good as he's potentially could be. He's just a very boomer plus prospect for me, and he intrigues me, but he also scares me from the fact that he's not experienced at the position. And I mean, there has been early round picks similar to that. The guy who comes to mind for me is the corner that got picked by Miami. He was fresh to corner, and I mean, he's looked good overall. He's extremely young. But I just don't know if it's a great pick. It's a possible pick. I just don't know if it's a great one. I really don't know. But to wrap this up and really give a full recap, my ideal draft for this first 4 picks as of right now is my 1.0, my raw one, without doing too much scouting. I really haven't scouted too much just yet. I mean, the season's not even over yet. But my number 2 pick would be Justin Fields. My number 26 pick would be Nick Bolton. My number 34 pick would be Jalen Twyman. Then my number 48 pick would be Paris Ford. Now, you guys are going to think that's craziness. That's too much defense. You guys want more offensive weapons and all this and that. But truthfully, if we have so much money that all we have to do is sign one more weapon on the offensive side, and our offense is good. You add in Justin Fields, I mean, he's going to change this offense more than people understand. He's going to give an aspect of this offense that we haven't had in a long time, if ever, with his running ability. And people don't understand that's going to make up for the lack of drafting offensive pieces. Justin Fields in his own right will give us an extra offensive piece simply being on the field with his ability. Because not every quarterback can do what he does. You can count on your hand how many quarterbacks that do what he does with running the ball wise. And I just think Bolton gives us great value at number 26. For me, he's like almost a safe pick. I don't want to call it that because he does have potential, but you know what you're getting with him. He's a 6', 230 linebacker. He's good in pass coverage, good in the run. He's not great at anything, but he does his job. And he'd be a great third linebacker next to Miles and Joe. He fits the mold of what we need. We need a little bit more pass coverage in our front seven. Because Joe, I mean, even though Joe in the past has been a good pass coverage linebacker, this year he did struggle with it a little bit, but I will give him a pass. It's a new system, all that. Miles Jack, we know Miles Jack can cover most people, but again, in his natural position, Miles Jack needs to free roam. If we lock him down to covering tight ends or covering running backs, he doesn't get to have the game-wrecking ability he has. So you get a guy like Bolton who can cover running backs, cover tight ends, and realistically put in the dirty work in our linebacker core. I mean, that makes us have one of the best linebacker cores in the entire league, in my opinion. Then at 34, you get Twyman. I mean, Twyman would fit like a glove. We got Custon, who has looked like a great undrafted free agent rookie. I feel like he'll be like almost the Avery Jones to our defensive line. He'll be that guy who's kind of like, he's good depth. He'll do his job. He's not going to blow you away stats-wise. He's not going to do anything crazy, but he'll do his job and he'll do the dirty work on the inside. And then Davon Hamilton is a great, like, true nose tackle run stuffer next to him. And then Twyman gives you that 3-tech pass rushing, interior pass rush type defensive tackle who's athletic and can realistically do it all from the inside. All 3 downs, can pass rush, can stop the run, all of that. And then at pick 48, I'm going Paris Ford. I just have to. He's such an energetic safety, and I feel like that's what this defense needs. I remember 2017, that's what made our defense so special. They just had that energy, that swagger to them, and I feel like we need to start getting that back. And I think Paris Ford would be an amazing fit to do that, because the hits that he lays, and he just overall on that field, he gives you that feeling like he's not scared of anybody on that field. He's not afraid to lay a hit on no matter who it is. And that's just something that this defense needs. They need that energy. They need that almost leadership role. And I just think he'd be an amazing fit for that. And with saying that, I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank everybody for watching. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and even comment your own choices down below. Comment, let me know who you think could be a steal in this draft. Tell me what you think about what I said. Whether you agree, disagree, I want to hear what you guys think. I realistically do. I mean, I do this all to hear your guys' opinions and have good conversations about this because it's enjoyable for everybody. I appreciate everybody who did listen to this, and I just thank every one of you for being here and just allowing me to do this. I really do enjoy doing it. It's extremely fun for me to scout prospects the way I do. I mean, it's a good escape. I just thank everybody.